Good morning. Good morning. How is everyone doing? Hope everyone is doing well. Hope everyone is having a great day. Welcome to Passion, Purpose, and Possibilities. I am your host, Kenny Ingersoll, coming to you live from Salt Lake City, Utah. Today's episode is brought to you by Kenny Ingersoll TV. Go check it out, kennyingersolltv.weebly.com, kennyingersolltv.weebly.com. All right, I want to start off today. Sorry, give me just a moment. We gotta check a few things, but doing this through Restream, so if you haven't already, make sure you grant any permissions needed. We'd love to see your comments. We'd love to see who is on, where you're watching from, if you're watching live or replay. Please comment below, hashtag live, hashtag replay. I'm on the replay, I'm on live, whatever you want to say. Just let us know where you're on. Sorry, I'm just looking at my notes over here. So, all right. So I'm excited for today's guest. You know, I've been working on getting this together for a couple months here. I actually met him through a mutual friend, John Kovich Jr. Many of you know John Kovich. Shout out to John. John, you're awesome. If you don't know who he is, look him up, hit me up. I can connect you. Great guy to get with. But the guy I want to introduce you to today, a special guest that I'm looking forward to having, is Bryce McKinley. Excuse me. On a mission to change the real estate investing game. After being involved with over 10,000 transactions, he has developed an expertise to know exactly what it takes to go from the first conversation to close a deal. Locally recognized as a top 5 sales trainer, motivational speaker, and independent consultant for businesses, including, but not limited to, Fortune 500 companies such as Ford, Nissan, Tyco, and ADT. He's been selling since he was 8, so he knows what he's talking about. Excuse me. You know, so without further ado, Bryce, how are ya?
What's going on, Kenny? Good to see you, man. How are you, brother?
I am doing amazing. How are you?
I am too blessed to be stressed, my friend. Too blessed to be stressed. I'm excited.
I love it. I love it. And you know, it's so easy to find blessings when you're looking for them.
That's it, man.
So I love how you started off with that.
Yeah. Happy Friday. Happy Friday, everybody.
Absolutely.
Dig in
So
here.
I gave a little bit of introduction. You've got your hands in a lot of pies and stuff. Fill us in a little more. What are you up to today? What do you got going on this week?
Man, we just did a sales webinar training yesterday. It was packed. It was amazing. Had a bunch of lives change. That's the most important part. My company name is REI Results for a reason. And so trying to get people results is key and key to our business. And so that's really what we've been working on this week. We've got a brand new software coming out, hopefully sooner rather than later. If you know anything about tech can be very challenging and overwhelming for some folks. So, you think you'd start out on this venture to build something really cool, and 2 years later, here we are, and we're just now implementing it into our team, let alone sharing it with the public. So really excited about that. We had a lot of really good feedback from our team. And so between our tech stack and what we're doing and our sales training yesterday, man, I'm excited to be in this industry right now. Because one thing that I know, Kenny, is the real estate space, when the economy is good, our business is good. When the economy starts to get bad, if you know what you're doing, the business gets better. And so, we're on that like top of that hill where we're about to start going down, and the economy's tanking every day. I think I seen this morning interest rates are in the mid fives already, and it's like, yeah, that's still really low for some of us, when we've seen double digits in our past. However, to the first time homeowner now, like that's getting high or higher than what they've ever seen. So, with the economy starting to tank, teaching conversations is something that we need to really sharpen. And I'm excited to be talking with you today because those are the projects that we've got on our forefront right now.
That's awesome, and it's always exciting to hear other people's projects that they've got going on, and because there's endless learning and collaboration opportunities, out there, and you find the right pieces to fit the right puzzles, and it's the inspiration comes automatically, the motivation comes automatically, and I love that.
Yeah.
I'm jumping right into real estate. What would you say to people that want to get into it? And this isn't just for real estate. This is for any business. It's like, oh, I missed my starting point, or it took me 2 years to get this up and rolling, so I'm gonna throw in the towel.
I mean, at the end of the day, the people that win and the people that succeed are the ones that keep going. Because if you quit, I mean, that's exactly what you're doing. You're quitting, right? And so you'll never succeed if you give up. And so if you're on the fence and you're thinking about throwing in the towel, I'll tell you, my son once quoted, the number one gun that killed the most people is the gunna. I'm going to build a business. I'm going to be successful. I'm going to do this real estate thing. And that's just not the case. Matter of fact, I even had a client once say, God works best with moving cars and not parked ones. And so, you've got to keep moving. You've got to keep it in drive. And sometimes overdrive is what it takes, but you got to keep moving. If you give up now, you're throwing in the towel on any hopes of anything else in the future, because you're going to continue to tell yourself that you were a failure, and you were a failure. And so you are a failure and you will fail. That's just what it boils down to. So I want to encourage anybody that's in the sound of my voice, like, keep going, keep pushing, pick it up, keep moving. And I believe, Kenny, that everyone should hire a coach, because coaches can see the label on the outside of your jar and you can't. And so I believe that if you're watching this and you're in the sound of my voice and you're on the fence and you're thinking about giving up, why would you? Because it's scary? Because your feelings got hurt? Business don't care about that. Business wants to see action. And so I want to encourage anybody to keep going, keep pushing, keep digging.
I love that. And it makes me think of a quote that I like from Grant Cardone. He's like, you never fail until you quit. So even the things that took longer or you didn't see as a success and as you might have labeled it, as long as you keep moving forward, you haven't failed. And then another analogy that I've heard a lot lately is a rocket is off course like 90% of the time on its way to the moon. It's constantly getting back on track, constantly re-navigating. It's constantly course correcting. So if your business isn't going how you want, or your plan took 2 years or 15 years longer, then just course correct. Make those tweaks. It's also don't undervalue what's happening under the surface, so to speak.
Yeah, that's it. That's it.
So I love that. And you mentioned a mentor, and you mentioned your team and stuff, and that segues into my next question, and that is the importance of having a supportive partner, whether that's a spouse, business partner, coach, mentor. You know, elaborate a little more on the importance of that, having someone that is on the same track, so to speak.
I'm not sure what your question is, but I can only tell you from my beliefs. My beliefs are that everyone should hire a coach, and we none of us can see the label on the outside of our own jar. And so if you're stuck on like this task or this tool or this business and it's not going anywhere and you just keep beating your head against the inside of the glass of your own jar, there may be, you know, a leaf over here that you can jump out. I always think of like fleas, for example. Fleas, most people don't know this, but fleas can jump like 5 to 6 meters at a time. But if you take a flea and put them in a jar and put the lid on it, well, they'll stop jumping once they get to a certain height, which is the top of that lid, right? And so what happens if a couple of fleas are in there and they reproduce, you could take that lid off and they'll never jump out because they've hit that plateau so many times that they train themselves that that's their barrier. And so I believe that everyone should have a coach, because a coach can help you see the label on the outside of the jar, can help you tell you, hey, the lid is off, jump higher, or jump in this direction, move and pivot in this angle so that you get different results. And when you get different results, you can correct back to where you want, fix it, and assess the problem or assess the wins and go further, faster, and longer, right? Not only that, when you think of like a spouse or a business partner, at the end of the day, most of us have people in our corners for one of two reasons. Number one, they're friends and family, and they want to support us, and they do it from a place of love. And that love comes from a place of consistency from your outputs. And so they may not be the most supportive. And so don't be afraid. The good book, the Bible says, like when you get married, to leave your mother and father and join your spouse and become one. I think of that verse when I think of business, because what happens is when you set out on this entrepreneurial journey and you start a new business and you've never done it before, all those people that love you, that are telling you like, you should go get a job, like, why don't you just get a real job, or just hang it up for a little while, they mean good intentions. They really genuinely care and want you to win, but they only want you to win from the map in which they're interpreting, which is your previous results. And if they've seen you do well in a 9 to 5 and now you're starting a new business and it takes you 2 years, like in your example earlier, sure, they're going to tell you to go back and get a real job. Why wouldn't they? They want to protect you, right? Like that's their moral obligation as a caring person. But they're not thinking there's more potential here. What if you did it this way? And that becomes supportive, right? I think back to the book Rocket Fuel by Gino Wickman, right? There's your visionary, and there's your integrator in business. And when you have two persons in business, if you're looking at it like a partnership, like you have to really laser focus in on delegating responsibilities versus task, knowing and operating with expectations and boundaries, and all of these things in order for your partner to help you and support you. Because when those boundaries and expectations aren't met, stories start to happen in one or the other's mind. And when that happens, businesses fail, partnerships break, relationships divorce and separate. And so you've really got to be cognizant of where you're at in the moment, and maybe even more important, who you're with in that journey and where they're at. So does that make sense?
It does, and I love that you approach both angles. Because it's great to have the love and support and people that care for you and stuff, and they've got your corner and don't want to see you hurt and don't want to see you fail. But at the same time, it shows that you also need the people that are gonna push you and get you out of your comfort zone and show you
Yeah.
how to get out of that jar, like you said. Take the lid off of that jar,
Yeah.
and sometimes even smash that jar and get you a bigger one or whatever the case may be.
That's it.
And I feel that you need both of those in the proper percentages and at the proper times. Because you want the support of family and stuff, and excuse me, and being able to have their support of encouragement, but also understanding, like you said, where they're coming from and why they say those things they do. But also at the same time, I think, at least for me, it's more motivating because you are now an example to them. It's like, hey, yeah, this was scary, but look what's possible. This can be done. Kind of being that first generation sort of thing to accomplish XYZ.
Sure.
And then hopefully if they see that, then maybe they'll follow suit to some degree.
You can only hope, right? You can only hope.
Yeah, there's only so much you can do, but I love seeing my example positively influence others.
Yeah, for sure.
Next question. We're approaching the middle of the year. We're beginning of April, kind of towards the middle of the year and stuff, and goals are kind of wearing out. You're past that newness phase of the New Year's resolutions and stuff. How do you keep pursuing your goals after that has phased out? Until like a couple years ago, I used to review my goals once a year. New Year's Day, kind of that whole 2-week period. But then after that, it would like die off and phase out until the end of December. But then I've learned and I've realized that I can renew and adjust and look at my goals as often as I want.
Mm-hmm.
I see you've got a whiteboard. I'm sure you use that for part of your goals. I've got goals and whiteboards behind me. How do you help stay focused and on track when those things are like dying down? And it's like,
it's a series. It's a series of things, right? At the third quarter of a year prior, my business partners and I, we have multiple businesses. We would sit down toward the end of third quarter and kind of project what we want to do next year, whiteboard it out, kind of map it out, and then we put it into like a mind map. Now, that doesn't just sit there because then obviously nothing would get done. So that's kind of the first step. Second step would be, weekly, monthly, and quarterly assessing like where we are, kind of like your example earlier where you ask about, or you mentioned, a rocket being off track going to the moon. Well, because of the curvature of the spin and all the things, of course it's off, right? Like it's always going like this, trying to get back on track and recalibrating. And it's no different in business because, heck, look at the last couple of years we've had, right? Nobody set out 3 years ago expecting to pivot as much as they've had to in the last couple of years with the, COVID situation, if that's even a thing. I hate saying that word. Like, I just, when somebody plans destruction intentionally on somebody, I can't stand even talking about it. But when that situation becomes real in reality, and we have all these business challenges because we can or can't do some things, we have to pivot. So obviously, with a plan in place and a pivot that's going this way, you have to readjust to get closer to each other. And so how do you do that? It's real-time assessments. Like, we're going to have to change some things. Are we still able to hit the same goals, or should we set new goals? You know, the one thing that I realized in business as a former Fortune 500 business consultant, Kenny, I know one thing, and that is this. People don't set unrealistic goals. They set unrealistic timelines. And so if you want to make $1 million, for example, that's really not a lot of money. $1 million is not a lot of money. I mean, heck, even today, $1 million is, and sure, it's a lot of money for some people, right? Because they just can't wrap their mind around it. But $1 million today is like what $100,000 was 10, 15 years ago. And $100,000 10, 15 years ago was like what, you know, $20,000 or $30,000 was 20 years prior to that, you know? And so it's really not that unattainable. The challenge is finding out, like, okay, this is the goal. How do we get there? And reverse engineer it. And that's the thing that people don't realize when planning and adapting and shifting and pivoting. They have to really look at, all right, here's the goal, where we're headed, but this is where we're actually going. How do we adjust to get there? Number one. But then number two, is that still the goal? Is the timeline still correct? So most of the time, it's not a matter of the goal being unattainable as much as it is the timeline in which to get there. So if you've never made $1 million and you're next to somebody that has, the timeline is going to be different. You know, when I shifted my mind, I'll just give you an example. I remember my goals as a teenager. I got into a lot of trouble when I was a teenager, and my goals were, when I straightened my life, I wanted to make 6 figures. Well, when I made 6 figures in my first couple of months in business, I needed to adjust that goal. So then it became a higher 6-figure number. And then when I made $1 million, I'm like, that was easy. I need to make 10 million. And then when I made 10 million, to make the jump from 10 million to 50 million and 50 million to 100 million, it's just tweaking what you've already done and moving the timeline. And that's the biggest key. Most of us set ourselves up for failure because we don't set unrealistic goals. We set unrealistic timelines.
And you know, I've learned that firsthand several times and stuff, and I think that ties back into perfectly with, you know, having that coach, that mentor that's been there, you know, that can see, okay, let's tweak this a little bit, let's do that a little bit differently, you know, and get you out of that jar, get you to realize that you need to shift some things more, like the timeline and stuff, whatever, you know, and not necessarily saying that you did it wrong, it's just you didn't know otherwise, you know, when you're first starting out and things like that. And being able to, one of the biggest things that I'm learning now, you know, that I've really trying to deep dive and understand is being okay with hitting that goal. Because there's a lot of that imposter syndrome and self-doubt, and, you know, no one in my family's ever done that, or no one's ever done it my age, or whatever self-doubt you want to throw in there. Yeah. But actually allowing yourself to be okay with the possibility of achieving that.
Yeah. And I think that's a huge key, Kenny. I mean, a lot of us haven't even given ourselves permission to be successful in the first place. We want and desire these things, and we haven't even given ourselves permission because we're still telling ourselves that we're a failure because of our daddy issues or our mommy issues in our past, right? My trauma issues because of the things that I've experienced. Like, I'll never be good enough. I'll never be smart enough. Never be pretty enough or cute enough or handsome enough or whatever the thing is. At the end of the day, we have to look at life differently. There's one thing that I often say, and forgive me, my allergies are killing me, Kenny. I might actually have you kind of say something and turn my camera off so I can blow my nose. But here's the thing that I do know. I know that if we live life as if there's another expectation, we can always find the good in a situation. We can always find the positive in a moment or a situation. We can always find the good, right? I'm sitting here messaging my wife in between our comments, and I'm working on something, and she's like, "Smile, da 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 da," and I'm like, "Yeah, you're right." Like, because I'm planning my next move, right? Like, I've got a lot of things going on, running 5 businesses and a family and church groups and all the things. I've got to make sure that I'm on track and on staying on path and focus and schedule and all those things. But at the end of the day, if we just live life as if there's always another explanation, we can find the good in a situation, whether it's rough, tough, or not. And we have an opportunity to serve, right? I mean, what's the name of your podcast? Passion, Purpose, and Possibilities. If you look at that scenario and there's another explanation to something, then you can always find a possibility. You can always find more purpose. You can always find more passion. And so that's what I get excited about. When I wake up, whether I sleep in on some days or not, I know that I've got a purpose. I know that I've got a passion just burning inside of me. And I know that there's possibilities to change one life. And that's all that matters.
Yeah, yeah. One life can make a huge difference, and sometimes that one life is your own. And I like a few things that you pointed out is giving yourself permission. That was something that I struggled with for a long time. Is giving myself permission because I have these blinders on. Whether by how I was raised, or by society, or by conditions and circumstances that I used to think controlled me. So I had these blinders on. I'm like, oh nope, that's not even possible. I can't see it. That's not even possible. Who am I to even think about this over here?
Yeah.
But now that you give yourself permission, those blinders start to go away. They'll widen, and then they'll completely disappear. And then there's so many other possibilities that you can give yourself permission to explore, to do, and there's passions out there, and there's things that I want to do that I have no clue about right now, but I'm sure I'll find them. And the opportunities. I've
Tell me
connected.
about that, Kenny. Like, what do you want to do that you're not sure on right now?
Well, one thing is book writing. It's kind of been an idea for years, but I'm like, oh, that's nice. But lately, I've been more into it, and I've connected with more people, and collaborating and stuff, and through exploring those different possibilities and reaching out and giving myself permission to possibly be turned down and possibly be rejected and be embarrassed or whatever is essentially how I got connected with you. I mentioned at the very beginning through John Cohen.
Isn't it amazing how things work even when we don't know that they're working? I don't know if you know this, Kenny, but I am a 6-time best-selling author, and I've got one of the best publishers in the world, and I would be honored to connect you with her, and she can help you get unstuck. And I mean, I was right there with you. Like, I should never be an author. Like, I hate writing. I'm also a really good speaker, though. And you know what she told me? You can dictate it, send it in, and we'll type it up for you. And they've got software to do that. I'm like, what? So I just like rambled off in a voice note for 2 hours. And next thing you know, my book is written and it went international bestseller. And then I did 5 more, and I'm working on number 7 right now. I've got USA Today bestsellers, some Wall Street Journal bestsellers, some Amazon bestsellers, some international bestsellers. It's not as difficult as you may think. And just by having this conversation, look at us now. I would love to connect you with my publisher because she's amazing. She's really amazing.
I would love that. And it all started, years ago, like you just said, who am I to be an author? What value can I add, that hasn't been said, or who knows what, or, not just authors, but speakers or whatever the case may be. Go do it. If that's what you want to do, go do it.
Yeah.
Give yourself permission. I give you permission. Bryce gives you permission. Go do it. If you need help,
you know what time it is. Go do
it. That's right. I love that saying. The best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The second best is right now. I love that. You know, and you brought up something else that I want to do. You brought up, and in your bio here, it says that you're a great family man and father, and you mentioned your wife was texting you, and my wife does the same things, like make sure you smile, because I'm not a speaker normally or naturally, you know. I'm like, hi, how's it going? She's like, smile. But I love it, you know. It's that supportiveness and stuff that we talked about, but you talked about family stuff, and for me, I used to think there was work and there was life, and then you had to sort of balance it. And then, again, listening to my mentor, and I'll point out Grant Cardone again. I like a lot of his content. He's like, I live life. I don't try for balance. I live life, you know. And so I've really started to embrace that. I love that because my family is my life. My work revolves around my family and my life. I don't revolve around work. How is that for you? How do you apply that? How do you do your work-life balance or make it all work? Or
Yeah, I appreciate you asking. So number one, if you like Grant Cardone, I may not be a better marketer than he is, but I'm a much better salesperson and better sales trainer. So keep watching my content. I like the guy. Heck, I've got who's got my money bumper sticker over on one of my whiteboards on that wall there. At the end of the day, I'm a much better salesperson. He's a much better marketer than I am, but I'm a much better salesperson and trainer. So if you're consuming his content for sales training, come over and watch this guy. Number two, I'll just take your ball of like work-life balance and throw it out the window. There's no such thing. There is no such thing. And anybody that says you need to find balance and you need to find that, they're lying to you and run as far as the hills. I like to think of the scenario where a pastor is presenting for Easter or Christmas Eve, or maybe the accountant at tax season, like this time of the year. Try to get a hold of one of those guys. Try to get a hold of the senior pastor at your local church a week before Christmas and sit down with them. It's not going to happen. Try to get a hold of your pastor 2-3 weeks before Easter. It's not going to happen. He's got all the Easter events. He's got all the things going on for the Christmas Eve service. Try to get a hold of your accountant and book an appointment a week or two before April 15th. Not going to happen, right? Why? Because they're in this work-life balance. No, that's just not what it is. What it is the opportunity to understand, is this a problem to solve or a tension to manage? Let me say that again. Is this a problem to solve or a tension to manage? And this may be pushing the envelope a little bit, but if we think about the ladies in our life that we love so dearly, we both mentioned our wives, about every 28 days or so, something happens that we have no control over, and we might get smacked, slapped, or yelled at, and we don't even know what we did wrong, right? That is not a problem to solve. Ladies and gentlemen, that is a tension to manage. And when we can manage that tension and cater to someone's needs, or put a Band-Aid on something to get it through so we can suture it up and heal it later, that's when you really find balance. But there's no such thing as balance. I mean, I just had an event yesterday, for example, right? This last week has been hectic, crazy. I've been stressed out. I snipped at my son a little bit. My wife, I was short with her maybe a few times more than I would have normally. But guess what? It's over. I feel this sense of calm. If I had any apologies that needed, I did. I didn't, right? But there's a tension to manage there versus the problem to solve. And now it's regroup. What can we do better? So now that tension to manage, instead of being this big, may only be this big, right? And so as we move through life, if we can learn to identify the problems to solve versus the tensions to manage, you're be in a much better frame of mind and a much better state of calm in your life. And so that's the way I look at that. There's no such thing as work-life balance. That's garbage. And anybody that tells you there is, it's a lie. Now, the tension to manage there, things that have helped me, I use my calendar and I color code it. All of my different departments are different colors, so I know where people are at on my team, who's going to be in this meeting. Oh, the marketing, the orange calendar, all my marketing team is going to be on this meeting with my acquisition team. And, so I use a calendar. I block out after 6 p.m. I am absolutely unavailable to my organizations. I make that time a priority. I don't take sales calls on the weekend. Saturday and Sunday, not a chance. You're not getting a hold of me unless we set something specifically because of other schedules and how it worked. But I'm very selective of who I let talk to me on Saturdays and Sundays. That's my wife and my children time. That's my personal time, And there are some days where I let that boundary down, but that's due to an exception to the rule, that tension to manage, right? And then I have to pre-frame and set some expectations. Hey, family, I've got this going on. Unfortunately, we're going to have to push something back, or don't talk to me until this time because we have something else going on. So there is no work-life balance. And anybody that says so, they're lying to you. It's a problem to solve or a tension to manage.
I like that. And it also points to me that there's no one size fits all in that. Because you talked a little bit about what works for you and your team and your family and stuff, and and mine's a little bit different. Like you mentioned, I'm kind of locked in my office right now during this call and stuff, but after this, I might go read a book or play cards with my son and stuff. So it's all just kind of intertwined and living life and family time and work, and my kid and my wife are involved. We're in my work, and and vice versa, because my wife and I are both business owners. We work from home or wherever we're at, and so it just kind of a flow. So
Sure.
I love that.
Yeah.
Awesome. Bryce, I've loved having this conversation with you. Where can people get a hold of you if they wanted to? Not on Saturday or Sunday, though.
Right. Feel free. You guys can see my name right here on the bottom. Feel free to do a Google search, find any one of my social media platforms. I'm Coach Sharpen on Instagram, Bryce McKinley anywhere else. And we have, if you want to reach out or if you want to learn how to do real estate with no money out of pocket, yes, that's a thing. We didn't get into my backstory and we've got to wrap it up for obviously reasons. But I wrote a book on how I went from homeless to millions, and I did it completely organic, no paid ads, none of that. Like, you can do this too. I've got a book out, 5hourflip.com. It's the number 5hourflip.com, 5hourflip.com. And you can check out that $7 ebook, and literally it's changed tens of thousands of people's lives. And so I implore you, go grab a copy of that. There's some additional sales training if you want to purchase that and having better conversations. And then my other site for our mentoring and coaching is reiresultsacademy.com, reiresultsacademy.com.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing that. And again, everyone, I'd encourage you to go reach out to him. Awesome dude. Great knowing him. And again, Bryce, thank you for taking the time to be here. Everyone, thank you for taking the time to watch via live or later on any of the channels we're on. And remember to live your passion, fulfill your purpose, and explore the possibilities.
I love it. Thanks for having me.